Of the Audit Committee, Councillor David Harries.
Well, welcome to our latest edition of the Remote Audit Committee. We've got a fairly slimish agenda, so we'll move on hastily. First, apologies. Do we have any apologies or notifications of substitutes?
Thank you, Chairman. No apologies received.
We're all present and correct.
Excuse me, Chair. I have Maria Gridley, the Associate Partner for EY. Unfortunately, can't make it. I do apologise.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Justine. We weren't sure if you were going to be here, but you're very welcome, obviously.
Okay, thank you.
Declarations of interest. Any member have an interest beyond the normal interest in any of the agenda items?
No. Normal interest.
Shaking of heads. So we'll move on to the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of November. You've all seen those. I don't propose to go through them line by line. Are you content that I may sign them on your behalf as a correct record?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Duly done. Next item, there are no chairman's announcements. Or item 5, urgent business. I have no urgent business. So we'll move on to the verbal update on the statement of accounts. Denise, do you want to start with this? I don't know if Justine wants to say anything, but do you want to kick off, Denise, please? If you unmute yourself.
Sorry, yeah, I'm happy to. Justine, I didn't know if you wanted to provide the update or not.
Sorry, did you want me to provide an update?
Yes, if you're able to.
If you could just give us the current position. I mean, obviously, we don't have it. Our next and final deadline, of course, will be the 11th of March, our final meeting. So we're anxious to hear where we are with it, please.
Yes, the work on the South Northants Council 1920 accounts is substantially complete, although with the advent of unitary status with the West Northamptonshire unitary, we've got some work to do on going concern, and that's been done pan-unitary for both new unitaries. So that's still outstanding. And that's with the new unitary auditors, my colleagues in EY, and also the final outcome of the audit of the Northamptonshire Pension Fund is also outstanding, and that's with my colleagues in EY. So hopefully things can be signed off in March, and if necessary, then delegated authority be requested for that sign off. I'm sorry, I haven't got any definite dates more than that.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So they're the same two issues that were holding it up.
Absolutely, yes.
Our previous meeting.
Well, I understand that work is in progress at the moment, though. From a Western North point of view, I understand that work is in progress, so should be available to EY fairly shortly to be able to work through that, hopefully for a sign-off in March.
I'm sure that Martin Henry will be on the ball, and that they'll be provided. It's perhaps the dreaded NCC pension fund, but there's little we can do at this stage, but hope that we'll have them at our final meeting on the 11th of March.
We hope so.
Okay, any not much else we can say. Any member, any comments? I don't see any frantic hand waving. Okay, right. Well, thank you, Justine. We'll watch this space. Which brings us on to the internal audit update, and we have Anand here. So over to you, Anand, if you'd like to go through it for us, please. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and good evening again to everyone. Our progress report to the end of December. If I can go to page 17, please. And if I could go through the boxes very briefly. our workload. Okay, Chair, can we put on record, so you'll be able to put in the tremendous help we've had from officers in trying to progress the plan during these very trying times. And I mean, management has requested that two of the reviews in the plan be deferred to next year because of COVID implications on resources. Those being revenues and benefits and the health and safety reviews. The good news is we'd managed to progress the health and safety review. Unfortunately, not to the point where we could provide an assurance level on it. However, we've summarized the work that we've done on the health and safety area and made some points which management may wish to consider in the new authority. So the work we've done on that hasn't been wasted, and we've issued a memo to that effect. If I can move to the next box, we've managed to issue 3 final reports since the last meeting of the committee, one relating to finance systems, the one relating to Section 106 arrangements, and one relating to homelessness. We've also managed to issue 2 draft reports. There's one risk management listed there, and as of yesterday, we managed to issue a draft report relating to sundry debtors. Finally, Chair, in the last box, it just highlights how we've just got 3 reviews to be completed by the end of March, and hopefully we're well on course to complete those, and that would be the plan for the year completed, which is quite good news. Go on to page 18 for the final reports that have been finalised, Chair. The Section 106 arrangements, that was being given commendably significant assurance. The one area we've highlighted is which we discussed at the last committee meeting anyway, and management are well aware of it, is just keeping their eye on the ball to make sure that the monies they currently have and are expected to receive, are spent before any potential clawback in the future. But we are aware from the work we've undertaken that management are taking all necessary action to make sure that the money is spent and to prevent any clawbacks. The next report we finalised, Chair, relates to financial systems, and these were 3 different system reviews combined into one. And commendably, again, financial management reporting was given significant assurance, creditor payments was given significant assurance, and treasury management was given full assurance. You see later in the agenda, you've got a report from the Deputy Director on Treasury Management. And finally, we did a review on homelessness to follow up the outstanding recommendations from our report last year, and commendably again, we were able to provide significant assurance. A lot of work has been undertaken by the homelessness team, and more progress would have been made had it not been for COVID-19. But a lot of procedures have been introduced since the review, and a lot of hard work has commendably, been directed at this area. So, well done on that. If we move on to page 20, Chair. In relation to implementation of agreed actions. As of the end of December, there were 108 recommendations made, of which 101 had been implemented, and 7 were outstanding, and these are scheduled to be dealt with by the end of March. Full details of those are at Appendix 1 of this report. And finally, Chair, on page 21, the internal audit plan, well, I've already addressed this. It just gives you an idea of where we are. And just if I just add again that we've issued a memo in relation to health and safety, and we've issued a draft report for debtors. So that's completing a lot of the boxes. Overall, I would say this is quite a good progress report, both in terms of the progress we've made against the plans, and also in terms of the assurance levels we've been able to assign to the reviews we've completed. Nothing is below significant, and as we can see, there's 1 full in there. Chair, I'm prepared to take any questions.
Thank you. 7 out of 108 isn't too bad. I'm imagining that, yes, Sandra, the chairman of scrutiny, might have something to say about one of the items. Sandra.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just want to say, Anand, he might like to glance at it. We have produced a report from the scrutiny regarding 106 when we looked at 2 items, transport and health, and that will be going to the BPM on Monday evening and hopefully going to Cabinet and West Northamptonshire new unitary authority. One of our recommendations was that in fact an officer should be employed at a reasonably senior level in the new authority to really track these 106 agreements. We've had the most problem with health, if I may say so, and I hope it will get better, because until now I don't think the left hand and the right hand knew what they were doing, which has been very, very frustrating, not only for the GP practices involved, but for us as a scrutiny committee trying to get our a handle on something. So I hope we've made a little bit of progress in that front, but bearing in mind that 106 agreements are very, very important and affect all aspects of our life, basically. So I do think it's incumbent on the new authority to actually get a real grip on it. I mean, Dawn's done a good job on the finance, but once we've agreed, we never knew what was going to happen, really. And there does seem to be a big black pot somewhere up in the sky labelled NHS monies, which we need to make sure is spent in South Northamptonshire. So just to report to the committee who haven't been known what we've been doing, we have been working away, and dare I say we have been waiting from July until December before we got anywhere near what we wanted to know from the clinical commissioning group.
Thank you. Yes, I can only echo that. I won't repeat it all. Tony.
Yes, it's been frustrating.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, Sandra's just mentioned transport. I was going to raise that anyway, because I was on a group that actually looked at some of this for Brackley. When they built the roads for Sainsbury's back in 2017, there was a stack of money allocated for transport. When finally Sainsbury's was built and the medical centre built, we looked for the money and we were told it wasn't available. It's because it's given to NCC. And when we approached NCC, we were told, well, it was in the pot, etc. After a lot of pushing, we finally got a result yesterday from NCC saying that 217,000 indexed to 257 was still available and sitting in the coffers of NCC and ready for allocation. What's concerning me is the 106 comes through building programs that are being managed by SNC today, but then 106 money that we've agreed goes off to another council and we seem to lose control of it. Fortunately, this one seems to have come back, and maybe when we're a unitary, that problem will go away. But on this audit, would we have picked up, or should we have picked up all of the money that was coming via 106s, or does it just get dished out and lost in the other organisations and not spent where we expect it? Rather interesting.
Well, I think Anand may want to respond, but this, I think, shows how effective internal audit and scrutiny has been, because I'm convinced that certainly with health and probably with transport, that money would not have been spent if we hadn't looked into it and focused on it. And hopefully, who knows what the new authority will do, but there will be clear recommendations to them to ensure that there's a sort of forensic focus on the Section 106 money to ensure that it's spent when it should be and where it should be. So hopefully these functions have worked and demonstrated where there's been this big black hole, and we can rectify it, hopefully. I mean, it'll be other people doing it, but we can only set a framework in place and hope that they follow it. Sandra, sorry.
Yes, really to Tony, if I may. Tony, I am quite concerned. We discovered in our discussions with the clinical commissioning group that there will be some money coming if you have two new developments in Brackley. which should produce quite a lot of money. And as yet, clinical commissioning group don't seem to know what they're going to do with it. Now, whether they haven't got any forward planning or thoughts, I mean, I'm sure people locally could tell them what they could spend it on for the benefit of the residents of Brackley. So that in itself is quite worrying. So I hope that our colleagues who go forward to the new authority, particularly from South Northamptonshire, will take an active interest in 106 monies and keep a very careful eye on it, because we don't want it to be spent in other places.
I'll probably pass that on to Carol Billingham, because I know she's not standing going forward, but she's still chair of the charity looking after the new hospital. And perhaps that some of that money should have been coming in to the hospital as well.
Well, and the other practice, I guess, as well. Yeah. Yes. So anyway, I just throw that out for you to keep an eye on, because they just mentioned it en passant, so to speak. Yes, that's how one discovers things.
But doctors should be doctors and shouldn't be managers.
Well,
end of comment.
Yeah, well, on a positive note, I think we have done our job, our function, to ensure that these things are rectified, and there's a framework in place for the money to be spent properly. So any other internal audit issues? I
think it's very positive, if I may say so, the report, and good.
Yes. David, I just wonder, Chris? I'm a bit nervous about leaving the matter that Sandra's raised, because I think it would be perfectly valid for this audit committee to write to the Director of Finance at West Northamptonshire Council, because no matter what happens in May, he will still be there, just highlighting the fact that we're concerned about the way that Section 106 monies are monitored, and we'll ask that is taken on board in a new authority.
Yeah, we can. The trouble is, we'll cut across what scrutiny are doing. You probably haven't seen, there's a detailed report and recommendations, which I hope will go through Cabinet on this whole process. And the projects in Section 106 are actually listed. But I quite take your point. And I
just wonder whether if that is the case, could Audit Committee not also say that we support the recommendations coming from Scrutiny Committee?
Well, I'm very happy to do that, because there's some of the, particularly the health issue, has been a personal, almost said vendetta then, but
crusade, I think,
for quite some time. But I mean, if members think that's a useful thing, then if we can resolve to, I think it's going to business planning meeting
on Monday, yes,
which is fairly soon.
Monday.
So, I mean, if the members agree that, I'm quite content to pursue it through there. We're not going to let it go, Chris, but I'm just wary of dividing our resources too much and watering it down. I'd like to focus on getting this thing through and the framework through, and we won't let it go. Apart from anything else, if I tell Carol Billingham, you can be sure they won't let it go. Richard, did you want to advise us?
Yes, folks, thank you, Chairman. Just wanted to clarify that this report from the Scrutiny Working Group, Section 106 contributions relating to health provision, will go to Cabinet BPM on Monday, as Councillor Barnes pointed out. Obviously, it's very limited as to what I can say. The Cabinet BPM agenda is obviously private. Obviously, we're in public session at the moment, but we can happy to look at this in private session again later. You've obviously all got access to those papers, but it will be going through that process. The transport report has already been through that process, so certainly we can do that. That's it from me.
Thank you. And certainly there will be 3 members of this committee that will go to that meeting on Monday, and I'm hoping it will go through the system through a cabinet and will be a strong recommendation to those people who will be running the West Northants Unitary. Are we content with that? And we will follow it up. But if we're not satisfied, it'll be in the minutes of our next meeting. The minutes of this meeting will go to our next meeting. So if by then we're not satisfied, then I'm sure we'll be quite content to pursue it ourselves specifically, if that meets your point, Chris. Okay, well, the recommendation we have before us then is to note the contents of the January 2021 Internal Audit Progress Report from CW Audit Services. Are we content to do that?
Agreed.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Anne. Moving on then to item 8, Treasury Management Report. Denise.
Thank you, Chair. The Council currently has about £35 million invested. Section 3.8, we then anticipate the interest shortfall on that currently is around 30,000. To the end of the year, that could reach as much as 65,000. The reason for that primarily is because of reduced rates. As we find investments mature, when we're able to reinvest that money, we're investing at a reduced rate all the time. What we are particularly conscious of is around the security, liquidity and yield of those investments. So we are trying to make sure our money is absolutely safe. We are having to keep a vast amount of money liquid because of the amount of grants we're having to pay out at the moment for the government and the COVID situation. Happy to take any questions on that.
Can't see any hands waving. I mean, we are where we are, and it's the security, liquidity and yield. Yield is the last of those. And so the interest rates have fallen and globally, so there's very little we can do to influence that. I'm sure we can cope with it where the system is robust enough. So I don't think there's anything desperate there. Well, in the absence of any questions, I think that was quite clear. Thank you for that report, Denise. So again, we are asked to note the contents of the Q3 Treasury Management Report. Are we content to do that?
Agreed.
Hands, thank you. Yes. Silence means assent, so far as I'm concerned with that. But yeah, hands away. Thank you. We'll do that. Which brings us on to the review of the committee work programme.
Sorry, Chairman, just before we go on, could I just say that how much I once again enjoyed the report from Olin Close, which should be attached to our Treasury report, because they usually come and see us in the flesh, so to speak. So presumably this is this is our remote way, but it's always a good read and takes in the sort of the global view of life. And I always find it quite reassuring in a way that, you know, we're doing the best we can under the circumstances that surround us with regard to where our money is placed.
Yeah, I do find it useful, and sadly enough, I find it a good read too. So
yes, I mean, well, we're obviously nerds then, aren't we?
It does give you quite an insight, doesn't it, as to what's happening, and also the fact that rates and the situation is going to be continuing for some time yet. Yep,
hope they do put in a bid to look after the money of West Northamptonshire.
Well, we await the Biden bounce in the global markets.
Perhaps PPE is the thing to get in, put our money into.
Well, yes, possibly. Who knows? No one knows what the future will hold.
Thank God.
The excitement of these reports and forecasts. Okay, so we'll the work programme, which you have before you, and once again, we need to add the 2019-20 sign-off. So it'll be the statement and the statement of accounts and the governance statement. which should be on there. And hopefully this is our last chance to actually deal with it before we disappear into our own unitary. So any other comments, or are you happy with that addition to accept the work programme? Thank you. Richard, do you want a formal proposal?
Thank you, Chairman. No, that's fine. Just to reiterate the point to members that if required, up until the end of the lifetime of this council, the provision does exist for a special meeting to be held to specifically deal with the statement of accounts and annual governance statement. If required, that can be organised within the legal timeframes. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Yeah, that's useful. So we might all be meeting at 5 to midnight on the 31st of March. That'll be fun. Okay, well, whenever we get it, if we get it in time to deal with. Tony, did you want to say?
I've got to go back on to, oh, mute. Thanks, Chair. What is going through my mind is if there's something we're not happy about after we've broken our links with SNC and moved on, does audit go back and look at something that was specific SNC, or does all of that suddenly stop on the 31st of March? I just wondered how it worked.
Well, after the 31st of March, we don't exist. And so it'll be for the new authority to deal with all these issues. Although I understand, well, no one's told me personally, but looking at the rules and how things operate, I understand that there will be an audit committee comprised of the existing chairman of the existing audit committees, should an audit committee be necessary. But the sign off of the accounts will be done by the successor authority. So after the 31st of March, our role disappears. So someone else will have to deal with all those issues.
Oh.
I think that's right. I'm looking around. Denise perhaps can put me right if that's...
Yeah, there will be obviously an audit committee under West, and they would have to deal with any prior issues. If there's any audit questions still outstanding, then the finance teams in that sense would have to go away and answer those questions. Having said that, we haven't had any questions from audit since about August time. We're primarily just waiting for the going concern sign off regarding to West.
Thank you. I say I don't wish to be complacent in any way, but I think we all know the standard of officers, finance officers, and I would. It's unlikely that there'll be anything really dramatic that will turn up that will need major inquiries. But who knows? It's
Dave, Chairman, I picked up a little gem. The gem is that the order allowing us to meet remotely runs out in May. Now, if the West Northampton, if we continue as a shadow authority beyond May, apparently it has to be primary legislation to reinstate doing things remotely. So that should be interesting, because obviously nobody's thought about it. Cook up on the management front, not here, but in the government yet again. So just a thought that can't do it unless the legislation's there.
Well, as things stand, the elections are in May, and we wait for guidance or anything that might change that.
Yeah, put your money on it.
I'm not a betting man. Okay, so we've accepted the work programme.
Yes.
So now we exclude the press and the public under Part 1 of Schedule 12A, the Local Government Act 72, because of items under Parts Sections 3 and 7